We lost our last dog a couple of years ago, and I was
Yeah,
so sad. So we got a new dog, um,
very fun.
Cockapoo. But here's a fun fact: a dog's nose print is as unique as your fingerprint.
Huh.
Does anybody need to know that? No. But I think it's like a testament to the creator who loves uniqueness, that I'm going to give you a
Yeah,
dog that has a unique dog print. I just think that kind of
that's so
stuff
cool.
is
Yeah.
so fun and so meaningful and makes life just a little bit more enjoyable.
Welcome to the Post Christian Podcast, where we help you make disciples in our increasingly post Christian world. My name is Eric Bryant. I'm the campus pastor at Gateway in South Austin and Gateway Austin Online. I'm also the founder of Catalyzing Community. Sign up for our email newsletter at ericbryant.org and we'll send you free resources. So on this episode of the Post Christian Podcast, I have with me Mark Batterson. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great, Eric. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been years that I've known you, and I remember before you even wrote your first book. In fact, looking at your bookshelf, are those all the books you've written back there? You are
Well, though,
prolific. You are prolific, my friend.
those are a few thousand of my friends that in book form that I have read.
Well, I've
Yes,
loved seeing your just willingness to do the work and really share with the global church what God's doing in your heart and in your life. I'm just so excited to see just all these years when we first met, I don't know, 20 something years ago.
yeah.
It's just so amazing. Maybe for a moment, Mark, just talk a little bit about how National Community Church is navigating 2024. It's an election year. You're in DC. We're recording this just, before the election, but I want to just hear, what is it like reaching out, trying to make disciples in kind of this divided world in which we live?
Yeah, well, and a church that over 28 years has somehow managed to remain nonpartisan in the sense of not identified with a political party. We believe we're called to stand in the gap as peacemakers, grace givers, truth tellers, tone setters, and there are easier places to do that, but an incredibly diverse congregation, which is so fun,
Mm.
ethnically, politically. It also creates its challenges because you're always living in the tension. But, I think people think about Washington, D.C. as the kind of political epicenter of the world, at least of this country. And but we're believing for revival in DC. So for 28 years, we've been loving on friends experiencing homelessness to members of Congress and cabinet members who have been a part of this church, State Department, you name it. Hundreds of Hill staffers. So we love DC, Eric. So we raised our three kids. All three are now in their 20s. We raised them on Capitol Hill.
Mm.
And so, when we go walk our dog at night, we walk over to the Capitol and back. And
Mm.
that's kind of the life we live. So, I've been pastoring on the ground in DC for 28 years.
Wow.
But then, and that keeps your feet to the fire. And let me at least speak a word of encouragement. Uh, Administrations come and go.
Mhm.
The kingdom is forever. And
Yeah.
the kingdoms of this world are becoming the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. There is a hill higher than Calvary, than Capitol Hill. It's called Calvary.
Right.
There's a court that's higher than the Supreme Court. And I think it's the inner court where we intercede and pray. And I don't want this to sound pejorative, but there's a house more important than the White House, and I think it's our house of prayer on Thursday nights
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we're seeing God move and work in this city. We've seen thousands of people
Mm.
come to faith in Christ and grow in that faith and make a difference. So that's kind of what we're doing week in and week out.
That's so well said. And I can't believe it's been 28 years. I mean, I'm just so amazed at what God has done there at National Community Church. Have had a chance to go there several times when I was on my sabbatical and send people there that moved to the area. I think I even have a friend from my Mosaic days that's on staff there with you now. But talk a little bit about what are some of the new ways your team, your leaders, even volunteers, are engaging the mission of Jesus in this kind of post-COVID crazy time that we're living in.
National Community Church is not complicated. It's this ecosystem where sometimes, like, it's amazing. I often say I know less and less about what's happening because I mean, we've taken more than 300 mission trips, so that's a huge heart of ours. We built $5 million DC Dream Center in Ward 7, where we're impacting youth. Uh, we have Ebenezer's Coffee House, so business's mission is a big piece of our puzzle. And then House of Prayer is what drives us. Prayer is how we write history before it
Mm,
happens. So, in one sense, we're a normal church that gathers on the weekend to worship, and that then has hundreds of small groups that kind of gather during the week throughout the city. But Eric, I think the big thing is we're not just trying to build a church, we're trying to bless a city to the third and fourth generation.
mm.
And the latest endeavor is a city block, 100,000 square feet, cost 29.3 million to buy
Wow.
it. And let's just say we put tens of millions into it since then to renovate it. But that's the cost of doing ministry in DC. And we believe that the church belongs in the middle of the marketplace.
Mm.
And so Monday to Friday is the true test of our faith. And so we're trying to raise up people that live it out, that walk the talk Monday to Friday, and bring their faith to bear on whatever it is that they do. So,
I love it. And I remember, I think it was when I was on my sabbatical that you guys were talking about this block that you had the opportunity to buy. And I love how you're seeing it as a way to engage with the city. Maybe talk a little bit more about prayer. You've mentioned that a couple times already. How did that get started and what happens when it comes to your prayer meetings? How is God leading you guys in that area?
yeah, well, the short story, the backstory is that when we were a church of 19 people in 1996, I woke up one morning, felt prompted to pray a perimeter around Capitol Hill, turned into a 4.7 mile prayer walk. And I wasn't praying for property, was praying for people, but we own 6 properties on that prayer circle
Wow.
all of these years later.
Wow.
So that is not coincidence, it's providence. And and at the same time, Eric, I would say it's not about brick and mortar. It's about
Mm. Yeah.
souls. It's about
Yeah.
flesh and blood. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but so prayer, really everything that the Lord has done are really these miraculous answers to prayer. And so after COVID, and we went a year and 2 weeks that we couldn't gather by DC government mandate,
Wow.
which that's a sucker punch for a
That's a long
church.
time. Yeah.
Um, but we decided let's go back to basics. And, Jesus said, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. So, we may have, thousands of people on the weekend, but honestly, it's a few hundred people on Thursday night. But that's where it happens, Eric. That's
Yeah.
where it took 120 people in an upper room to turn the world upside down.
That's right.
So when we gather and pray on Thursday night, it sets the tone and sets the table for what God wants to do, not just on the weekend, but we show up. Our only agenda is how is the Spirit moving and working?
Mm.
And um, we are charismatic by theology and by practice. So and I make no apologies for that. But we're probably not like the most uber charismatic church you would think of if you're thinking kind of a more traditional charismatic church. But we have found it's in our lifeblood that God is turning us into a company of prophets, that we speak into
Mm.
culture. We speak. So we're believing for revival in the church. Reformation in the kingdom, Renaissance in culture,
Mm,
and we're seeing it on all of those levels. Just we're seeing His kingdom come, His will be done in some really unique and powerful ways.
mm.
And yeah, so like even our building, Eric, like we last year leased it out uh, to 100 different groups. It revenue
Wow.
streamed 1,258,000 for kingdom purposes. So I mean, it's a major revenue stream. But then we let our friends like IJM, World Vision, others will
Mm,
come over and they'll do their day of prayer here.
mm.
So it's again about how do we turn the church inside out? Because the church that stays within its four walls isn't a church at all.
Yeah.
We're called to be more known for what we're for than what we're against. And so we're really raising up this generation of prophets. And it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, lawyer, Uber driver, barista, Hill staffer, State Department, whatever it is that you do, God has called you to be a prophet in that context, to
Yeah.
speak truth and grace into people's lives. So that's what we're going after and getting after these days. And the engine is that house of prayer on Thursday nights.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. I love the heart that you guys have and the years and the hours of time that you're praying for our nation. And may we see that. May we join you guys in that. I wanted to ask you, I love this way you framed it. You guys are nonpartisan, but you're also prophetic. How do you um, determine when you're going to speak out on something that's in the news? There's oftentimes pastors that feel this pressure. They've got to say something, or half their crowd will be upset. But if they say it the wrong way, the other half will be upset. How have you
Yeah.
navigated that, being both a prophet and nonpartisan?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably equal opportunity offenders that we probably step on everybody's toes by the time we're done. But, I think I learned about, 4 years ago coming out of COVID that with the political polarization and racial tension in the country, no matter what I say, it's never enough and it's always too much.
Hmm.
So you just can't strike the perfect balance. I think we've tried to figure out what's our lane. So, much of this election cycle, and I would say really over the last 4, 6, 8 years, so much conversation around immigration policy, border. How do we protect that border? How do we process people who are coming? And the truth is, you have people that are coming for the American dream, and you have people coming for the wrong reasons and everything in between. This is not a simple jigsaw puzzle to solve. We don't feel like our job as a church is to necessarily figure out how to legislate that. But the last time I checked, our job was to love the stranger. And this is an ethic that runs all the way back through the Old Testament. So, as of a few years ago, we were resettling 65% of the refugees in the DMV area.
Wow.
Now, I don't I like we got to figure out how to handle these kind of more political issues, more legal issues, and that's complicated. And I pray for wisdom for the people who are in that space.
Yeah.
But our job, I think, has been to over many years here to love on and help hundreds and hundreds of refugees to the DC area resettle, maybe just maybe land in church or at least encounter the grace of God through some
Yeah.
people who care. So,
That's
Eric,
good.
that's how we approach it. We don't get caught up in necessarily the hyper politicized piece. We want to theologize. It's the verb
Mm,
form,
yeah.
and be the hands and feet of Jesus, right here where we are.
That's so good. Well, I wanted to talk about something that I think maybe a lot of church leaders would love to hear. You are prolific, and I was, teasing you earlier about how many books you've written, but maybe would you just share a little bit about how God has either wired you and led you to not only write, you run, you lead a church, there's so many other things that you do. You parent well, you have a, healthy marriage. How has self-control or discipline, like I don't know how you would describe it, but maybe how did God lead you down this path to be so focused and productive? It seems like you're good at saying no to things, but I don't want to guess. Maybe give us a little more insight.
Well, I appreciate that question, and you framed it as a compliment, but the truth is, lots of painful moments where I had to reprioritize. A patient wife who at one point said, "Mark, this isn't what I signed up for."
Mm.
So moments like that where you just I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I'm pretty driven. You don't. The book that's about to come out is the 25th book
It's
um,
amazing.
in about 18 years. So that's more than one book a year.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I am pretty disciplined. Um, I was fortunate enough to start pastoring uh, before I had a cell phone.
Yeah.
I remember it was like 2 years in when we started asking people for their email. So I'm dating myself right here. But
Yeah.
what that means is the average person spends 2 hours and 22 minutes on social media every day.
Mm.
Well, do you know how many books you can read in 2 hours and 22 minutes a day? All of these books that are behind me. I
Yeah.
don't have the attention span now. I think the entire universe shifted,
Mm.
that it's much harder to focus because of the soundbite world that we live in.
Yeah.
Um, but, I tend to get up early, Eric. Um, and I do say no to a lot of things. I only do 7 overnight speaking trips a year.
Mm.
So that allows me to then pastor on the ground week in and week out and write. And the other thing I would say is I only preach half of our weekends.
That's a good point.
That's a pretty rare for somebody
Yeah.
who loves to communicate.
Yeah.
Um, but it then allows me to have, instead of speaking weeks, I have writing weeks,
Mm.
and that's really a calling, I think, to a larger congregation, so to speak. That I can maybe impact a few thousand people on the ground through pastoring, but writing allows you to impact as many people as want to pick up that book and read it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. And you have been a mentor to many from afar. And I want to talk about that 25th book, Million Little Miracles. Uh, I'm just real excited. I just started, I just got it yesterday, and the subtitles rediscover the God who is bigger than big, closer than close, and gooder than good. I love that. But this idea of seeing the miraculous, not taking the miraculous for granted, but taking it for gratitude, as you say in the prologue.
Yes.
Maybe talk a little bit about what you're hoping to convey through this book and why this is such an important way to see the world.
Yeah. Well, Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy, said there's only two ways to live your life. One is as if nothing is a miracle, and the other is as if everything is.
Mm.
And I think one of the greatest apologetics for not only the existence of God, but you're seen, heard, and loved by God. He knows the hairs on your head. He knows He's ordained all your days. He knit you together in your mother's womb. I think one of the greatest apologetics is science.
Mm.
And somehow along the way, uh, there was friends became enemies.
Mm.
And I'm a guy that believes all truth is God's truth, and everyology is a branch of theology. So in my free time, I geek out on astrophysics and neuroanatomy and everything in between. And so, what I wanted to do with this book is, yes, I believe in miracles that are the anomalies and epiphanies. But the truth is, it's the day in, day out miracles that are really the most amazing. And
Mm.
here's what's crazy, Eric. Like, remember when the Israelites started complaining about manna? I'm thinking to myself, wait, so you had breakfast in bed uh, delivered to you like this manna was a miracle, and you're complaining about a miracle? And we do the same thing. I mean, come on, we're on a planet that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, speeding through space at 67,000 miles per hour. Even on a day when you didn't get much done, you did travel 1.6 million miles through space. Like that is pretty amazing. In
Yes.
fact, I would say miraculous. But no one at the end of the day hits their knees and says, Lord, thanks for keeping us in orbit. I wasn't sure we would make the full rotation today, but you did it again. Like God is so good at what God does that we take it for granted.
Yeah.
I don't wake up saying, Lord, thank you for the 37 sextillion chemical reactions taking place in my body right now.
Mm,
We don't think that way, but
mm,
the whole thing is a miracle. And
yeah.
so this book is about let's carpe wonder, let's wake back up to the miracle of God's creation and give credit where credit is due.
Well, so well said. I remember a season in my life where I felt like, I hadn't seen any of the miracles some of my friends had seen. And I actually shared the story a couple weeks ago here at Gateway in South Austin. And what I ended up doing was just starting to write down any miracle that I could find. And it took a couple days, but I found myself writing for hours because it changed my perspective. Exactly what you described. And somebody said, you should come up with something like that to help us see the miraculous. And now I can
Mm.
tell them my friend Mark Batterson did, like, uh, but it does change. I mean, even like you talked about neuroscience, there is something in the brain when we are grateful that turns off what makes us anxious, and
yes.
I think for our people of faith, to actually see the world through the eyes of faith, you've given us another great resource to help us do that.
Mm. Well, thank you. And we need to recapture a theology of dignity in a culture where everyone is trolling and baiting and shaming and canceling.
Mhm.
Eric, the image of God in me greets the image of God in you. You are
Mm,
fearfully and wonderfully made. And part of what I'm hoping the book helps readers do is just recapture. There are no ordinary days. There are no ordinary people. Like
mm,
this whole thing is miraculous. I mean, right down to um, can I maybe I can give listeners an assignment. Go find someone you love and hug them for 20 seconds.
mm,
Why 20 seconds? Because we now think that at right about that 20-second mark, when you hug someone, you start to secrete oxytocin.
mm,
And oxytocin is this incredible, it's the cuddle or love hormone that when a mother is breastfeeding, it's released.
mm.
But it's the glue that kind of binds us together. I that kind of stuff, man, that is not accidental. That is by divine design. And it's
Yeah.
something that we shouldn't take for granted. We should take for gratitude. And that really, I had so much fun writing this book. I hope people have half as much fun reading it as I had writing it. Because, I mean, Eric, you don't have a dog, do you?
We just lost our dog not too long ago, but for
Eric.
16 years we loved on that little doggy.
So, I mean, my condolences. I do believe that our dogs are waiting for us on
Mm.
the other side. I really do believe that, and I believe in dog therapy. We lost our last dog a couple of years ago, and I was
Yeah,
so sad. So we got a new dog,
very fun.
Cockapoo. But here's a fun fact: a dog's nose print is as unique as your fingerprint.
Huh.
Does anybody need to know that? No. But I think it's like a testament to the creator who loves uniqueness that I'm going to give you a
Yeah,
dog that has a unique dog print. I just think that kind of
that's so
stuff
cool.
is
Yeah.
so fun and so meaningful and makes life just a little bit more enjoyable.
I agree. Well, I really appreciate the time. We're going to give away free copies of your book. If you want to sign up for the email newsletter, that's how you can do that, ericbryant.org. And visit Mark at markbatterson.com and at national.cc for National Community Church. Mark, thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for investing in all of us, and blessings to you as you continue to make such a difference.
Hey, Eric, keep fighting the good fight, keep running the race, and let's finish strong. Keep
Love it.
on keeping on, and God bless.
God bless. Thanks for joining us on the Post Christian Podcast. More resources available at ericbryant.org.